Let's start with the travel ban itself. 12 countries affected. No discernible disruption at airports yet. But what do we expect to be the practical implications for people from the affected nations?
Well, you're right. So far, it's been a fairly normal day at Washington's main international airport. In terms of what people who live in these countries can expect, from today, they will no longer be able to apply for, or they will no longer be given a visa to visit the United States unless they fall into a very narrow criteria that includes people like diplomats, dual citizens, people working for the United Nations on specific UN business, and athletes who may be competing in the World Cup or the Olympics in America, but otherwise they are not going to be able to come to this country. Donald Trump is saying that this is a national security issue, and he's doing this because the countries he has named he believes have connections to terrorism or their citizens have in the past overstayed their visas when they've come to the United States. And it's another example of this wide-ranging immigration crackdown that's become such a signature of his second term in office.
And you look at these countries, Kate, it's Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, the DRC, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. People from Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela, they'll be affected by a partial restriction. And Donald Trump, am I right, has not ruled out adding more countries to the list.
Absolutely. He said that this is a movable proclamation, that if these countries that are already listed make changes to, for example, they improve their visa vetting processes, if they do more to show the United States that they are taking this seriously, then they could come off the list. But you're right. He said that as other threats emerge across the world, he may add countries to this list. It's kind of putting the world on watch and showing not just domestic Americans living here in the United States how serious he is about this immigration policy, but also making it very clear to the rest of the world that it's going to be much harder to come into the United States, and that this policy of his is clearly kind of his main priority, certainly at the moment.
And speaking of the immigration policy in the U.S., it's now sparked unrest and riots in the Los Angeles area for 3 nights in a row then. Yesterday, we witnessed the torching of cars by some of the demonstrators. Are we expecting much of the same going into Monday night?
Yeah, it's hard to say. As you know, on this, Donald Trump has taken an unusual step of federalizing the National Guard in California. Usually that's something that the state governor would ask the president to do. He's done that despite the state and the city of Los Angeles saying they don't need any help with law enforcement. And I think Donald Trump, this is kind of a really good visual example of what he's trying to show his voters he's doing. He is kind of overtaking from a Democratic governor in a Democratic state over one of his signature policies, this immigration issue, and he's really almost ramping this, well, critics would say he's ramping this up to try to make it into more of a conflict than perhaps it is. It's a conflict between these people trying to arrest illegal immigrants, but it's also now a conflict between the Democratic governor of California and the Republican president. It's hard to know if these protests will continue into a fourth night.
Right.
But certainly I think the fact that Donald Trump has ignited it further suggests there could be more issues.
2 quick final questions for you, Kate. About 100, well, close to 120 people were arrested. These were told were people who were in the country illegally over the weekend. What's going to become of them? Because they are currently in detention centers. And when Donald Trump posted online in the early hours of this morning, at least in South Africa, that bring in the troops, what does that mean in terms of the security response? Because the National Guard is already in the vicinity, rather controversially.
Yeah, that's right. That refers to both these 2,000 National Guard troops that he has authorized to go into California, into Los Angeles. He says they're needed to help with the protests there, but as I say, the Los Angeles authorities and the state authorities say they are not needed. He was also asked about active duty Marines who are in that part of the United States, and he was asked by reporters whether he would consider deploying them, and he said he is considering that, and that would be a really unusual move for the president to make, to put these active duty service personnel to patrol the streets essentially against American citizens. So there are increasingly controversial issues here. Gavin Newsom, the Californian governor, has already said that he will be suing the Trump administration over all of this, saying it's illegal. Once again, some of these big moves made by Donald Trump in terms of immigration are going to be challenged by the courts as he continues to push the limits of executive presidential power.
If you thought American politics couldn't get any more dramatic, buckle up. Because the streets of Los Angeles have officially turned into a real-life political thriller. Protesters, police, chants echoing through downtown, and at the center of it all, President Donald Trump, again. So here's the tea. Trump has officially instructed law enforcement in Los Angeles to increase surveillance after protests started heating up. And by heating up, I don't mean peaceful marching with candles and hugs. I mean full-on confrontations, fiery speeches, and people refusing to go quietly. This isn't your average Sunday stroll. The protests are in direct response to what many are calling the administration's aggressive stance on immigration. Yep, that old hot potato is back on the fire. Trump's latest push for mass deportations and what immigrants are calling harassment has sparked fury across several communities. And here's where it gets even spicier. This is all happening just as a new travel ban kicks in. Now, let's rewind for a second. The travel ban isn't just targeting one or two countries. It includes multiple nations, some of them in Africa. That's right, Nigeria, Sudan, Eritrea, just to name a few. And if you think people were going to just nod and accept it, think again. The protesters say this is about more than just immigration paperwork or visa approval. It's about dignity, identity, the right to exist and thrive without the looming threat of being snatched up and thrown out. And if you listen to some of the voices on the ground, it becomes very clear, this isn't just political for them. It's deeply personal. One protester in LA said, "We are not criminals. We are families, students, workers. We pay taxes. We contribute to the economy. Why are we being hunted like fugitives?" And that's the kind of energy fueling the marches right now. But of course, on the other side of the fence, you've got Trump and his supporters saying this is about law and order. America first, they say. We have to protect our borders. It's the same narrative we've heard before, only this time, it's being enforced with more surveillance and tighter controls. Think Big Brother, but with helicopters. And speaking of surveillance, let's talk about what that actually means. More facial recognition tech in public areas. Police drones flying over protests. Body cameras. Increased federal agents in immigrant-heavy neighborhoods. It's like the government suddenly turned into your nosy neighbor who watches everything from behind the curtains, only with military-grade equipment. Now, some might say this is necessary. Others are screaming human rights violations. Legal experts are weighing in, too, saying the way this surveillance is being deployed could violate civil liberties. Especially if people are being watched or tracked simply for attending a protest or having a foreign-sounding last name. But let's take a moment to talk about the African community in the US. Because they are feeling this hard. Many of them come from countries that are now under the travel ban. That means no family visits, no reunions, no weddings, just heartbreaking separation. Imagine your mother can't come see your newborn baby because of a political decision made thousands of miles away. Or you can't go back home to bury a loved one because you might not be able to return. That's the kind of impact we're talking about here. And it's painful. But in the middle of all this chaos, there's something beautiful happening too. Communities are coming together like never before. Churches are opening their doors. Lawyers are volunteering to fight deportation orders. Ordinary Americans, Black, white, Latino, Asian, are standing shoulder to shoulder with immigrants in protest. In Los Angeles, you'll see banners that say, "We all belong here," and "No ban, no wall." Artists are creating powerful murals. Students are organizing teach-ins. And the internet is exploding with hashtags demanding change. Say what you will about politics, but moments like these show the strength of unity. Still, the tension is undeniable. Trump's call for more surveillance has people on edge. Critics argue it's a slippery slope. Today it's facial recognition at protests, tomorrow it's surveillance in your home. And if history has taught us anything, it's that when fear becomes policy, democracy starts to crack. So what happens next? That's the million-dollar question. Will the protests grow larger? Will courts step in to challenge the travel ban again? Will cities like Los Angeles declare themselves sanctuary zones and refuse to comply with federal orders? The answers aren't clear yet, but one thing's for sure: the United States is at a crossroads. On one side, you've got a government pushing for tighter control and national security. On the other, you have people demanding freedom, fairness, and compassion. And in the middle, the streets of Los Angeles, filled with the sound of protest songs, megaphones, and the undeniable heartbeat of resistance. So as the dust continues to rise in LA, and more cities across the country join in, this chapter of America's story is still being written. And whether you agree or not, whether you're on the left or the right, one thing is certain: people are paying attention. Because this isn't just about immigration anymore. It's about who we are, what we believe, and the kind of country we want to be. And trust me, the world is watching. Stay tuned, stay informed, and as always, stay awake.